In a world that keeps moving faster, there are still places where speed feels out of place. High in the Eastern Himalayas, movement slows naturally. Roads wind instead of cutting through. Valleys remain enclosed. Distance is measured less in kilometers than in time and effort. This is Bhutan. Geography shaped this country long before policy ever did. Steep mountains limited access. Weather dictated travel. And within those constraints, a distinct system emerged where belief, governance, and daily life adapted to the land rather than trying to overcome it. In Paro, faith was placed high against sheer rock, demanding commitment instead of convenience. Where rivers meet in Punakha, political and spiritual authority once gathered according to geography, not ambition. And in Thimphu, a modern capital learned how to function without urgency, without traffic lights, and without surrendering to speed. Beyond the cities, open highland plains like Pobjika continue to follow seasonal rhythms, while valleys such as Bhutan quietly hold centuries of accumulated belief, practiced rather than displayed. Understanding Bhutan is less about moving between destinations and more about noticing what stays consistent. How land shapes belief and how belief quietly shapes daily life. Welcome to The Wandering Guy, where wandering turns into wonder. Paro Valley is often the first place people encounter in Bhutan, but it doesn't feel like an entrance. There is no dramatic arrival, no moment designed to impress. Instead, the valley introduces itself slowly. Enclosed by forested slopes, crossed by a single river that moves at its own pace, and shaped more by restraint than display. Sitting at over 2,000 meters above sea level, Paro occupies a high Himalayan basin carved by glaciers and erosion over time. The valley floor is narrow and carefully used. Fields are small. Settlements remain low. Space is limited, and nothing here feels accidental. Geography sets clear boundaries, and life has learned to work within them. Paro is home to Bhutan's only international airport, and even this gateway reflects the country's character. The runway is short, framed by steep mountains, and landings are only possible under clear conditions. Pilots must fly visually through the valley, threading between ridgelines with precision. This is not symbolism, it's logistics. Entering Bhutan has always required patience, attention, and respect for terrain. High above the valley floor, pressed against a sheer cliff, stands Paro Taktsang, better known as Tiger's Nest Monastery. Nearly 900 meters above the valley, it appears improbably placed, balanced between rock and sky. There are no roads leading here, no mechanical shortcuts. Reaching the monastery means climbing steadily through pine forest, gaining elevation one step at a time. According to tradition, Guru Padmasambhava meditated at this site in the 8th century, introducing Buddhism to Bhutan. The location was chosen deliberately. Height limits access. The cliff isolates sound. Distance creates separation. The journey itself becomes part of the practice, not an inconvenience, but a requirement. The monastery complex seen today dates largely to the 17th century, rebuilt and repaired after fires and damage. Its survival depends on maintenance rather than permanence. Materials are replaced carefully, preserving form rather than originality. What matters here is continuity, not age. Inside, spaces are compact and dim. Rooms are narrow, arranged around meditation chambers rather than grand halls. Light enters selectively through openings cut into the rock. Nothing is designed to overwhelm. Attention is drawn inward toward repetition, discipline, and focus. What defines Tiger's Nest is not its height alone, but its refusal of convenience. Every visit requires effort. Every supply arrives by hand. Repairs happen slowly. The monastery does not adjust itself to visitors. Visitors adjust themselves to the mountain. This relationship between land and belief is not unique to Paro Taksang, but it is unusually visible here. The structure does not dominate the cliff, it follows it. Construction accepts the shape of the rock instead of reshaping it. Daily life in Paro follows a similar logic. Agriculture moves with the seasons. Architecture remains modest. Monasteries and homes share scale and materials. Sacred and ordinary spaces exist side by side, shaped by the same environmental limits. Paro reveals a core principle of Bhutanese life. Belief is not separate from geography. It is positioned within it. Faith here is not made easier by access or spectacle. It is sustained through effort, repetition, and an acceptance of limits. And while Paro shows how belief in Bhutan often rises upward, demanding discipline and ascent, authority elsewhere followed a different logic, shaped not by cliffs, but by rivers, convergence, and flow. Punakha marks a clear change in Bhutan's landscape. The road descends, the air warms, and movement begins to feel less restricted. Rivers appear more frequently, and for the first time, travel follows water rather than elevation. Here, two major rivers, the Pochu and the Mochu, arrive from separate valleys and meet, creating one of the most naturally accessible basins in the country. This convergence explains why Punakha once became Bhutan's political and spiritual centre. While higher valleys were regularly cut off by snow, this lower region remained reachable through much of the year. Trade routes, seasonal travel, and communication followed the rivers. Authority gathered where access was reliable. Power here was not imposed on the landscape, it emerged from it. At the meeting point of the rivers stands Punakha Dzong. Unlike fortresses built on ridges or peaks, this structure sits directly within the floodplain. Water flows on both sides. Flooding is expected, not exceptional. The Dzong's design reflects that reality. Thick walls, elevated courtyards, and a layout that prioritizes survival and function over monumentality. For centuries, Punakha Dzong served as both seat of government and religious center. Even today, it remains the winter residence of Bhutan's central monastic body. Each year, monks descend from higher regions, repeating a seasonal movement shaped entirely by climate. Authority here is not fixed in one place year-round. It shifts with temperature, access, and safety. Beyond the Dzong, the valley opens into fertile agricultural land. Irrigation channels branch from the rivers, feeding terraced fields that follow natural contours rather than imposed grids. Villages remain compact. Farming is steady and deliberate. Productivity is measured, not maximized. The rhythm of daily life follows maintenance and renewal rather than expansion. Where Paro expresses belief through ascent and individual effort, Punakha reflects something more collective. Faith here is practiced through continuity, in seasonal return, shared space, and careful upkeep. Religious and civic life are not separated. They occupy the same walls, the same courtyards, and often the same routines. Although Bhutan's political capital has moved elsewhere, Punakha has not become obsolete. It was never built to grow endlessly or dominate its surroundings. It was built to hold people, authority, and rhythm, in a place where gathering was possible and movement could continue. As the rivers flow onward and the valley gradually widens, this sense of convergence begins to loosen. Travel becomes more constant, more outward-facing. The journey leads toward a place shaped less by geography and more by coordination, a capital that learned how to function without surrendering to speed. Thimphu does not announce itself as a capital. There is no sudden skyline, no dense rush of movement, no visual declaration of power. Instead, the valley opens gradually, revealing low buildings, winding roads, and a rhythm that feels measured rather than busy. Set within a narrow Himalayan valley along the Wangchu River, Thimphu's geography limits sprawl. Mountains press close on both sides. Space is finite. Expansion here is not effortless. This physical constraint has shaped how the city functions, compact, horizontal, and intentionally restrained. Unlike most modern capitals, Thimphu has no traffic lights. Movement relies instead on coordination and mutual awareness. Cars slow naturally. Pedestrians cross without urgency. The absence of mechanical control is not accidental. It reflects a broader preference for human judgment over automation, for pace over speed. Thimphu became Bhutan's permanent capital only in the mid-20th century. Its role was not to replace older centres like Punakha, but to house modern governance without severing ties to tradition. Administrative buildings, monasteries, schools and homes exist side by side, sharing the same architectural language and scale. Daily life in Thimphu reflects this balance. Government offices operate alongside markets and prayer halls. Daily life in Thimphu reflects this balance. Government offices operate alongside markets and prayer halls. Monks walk the same streets as civil servants. Ritual and routine overlap without separation. Faith is not confined to sacred spaces. It remains part of everyday movement. Despite being the country's political centre, Thimphu resists the intensity often associated with capitals. Decisions are made here, but the city does not accelerate around them. If Punakha represented convergence, where rivers and authority once gathered, Thimphu represents coordination, a place where systems function without urgency and where restraint is not a limitation, but a governing principle. Beyond the valley, however, coordination gives way to openness. As elevation rises and settlement thins, another rhythm emerges. One shaped less by administration and more by season, climate, and migration. Leaving the structured rhythm of Thimphu, the land begins to empty. Roads narrow, forests thin, sound softens. Then, without warning, space opens. Pobjika Valley spreads wide and flat at high altitude, an unusual formation in a country dominated by steep slopes and narrow corridors. This is a glacial basin, broad, open and exposed, where the landscape feels deliberately unfinished. Unlike river valleys shaped by flow and settlement, Pobjika resists density. There is no major waterway cutting through the land, no natural centre drawing people inward. Villages remain scattered along the edges. Human presence stays light. Climate defines everything here. Winters are long and cold. Frost settles across the valley floor. In warmer months, grasses return briefly, softening the land before retreating again. Life follows seasonal permission rather than permanent control. This openness has allowed Pobjika to become one of Bhutan's most important ecological sanctuaries. Each winter, black-necked cranes migrate here from the Tibetan plateau, escaping harsher conditions further north. Their arrival is predictable, their departure equally certain. The cranes are not treated as spectacle. There are no grand structures built to contain them, no attempt to manipulate their behavior. The valley adapts instead. Farming pauses in key areas. Disturbance is minimized. Observation replaces intervention. Human life here mirrors this restraint. Homes remain modest. Movement is slow and purposeful. There is little reason to rush across open ground that offers no shortcuts. Time stretches naturally. At the edge of the valley, Gangte Monastery overlooks the plains, present but distant. It does not dominate the landscape, it observes it. Here, balance is achieved through absence, by leaving space untouched, by allowing cycles to repeat without interference. This is a landscape shaped by patience, one that measures time not in days or years, but in return. Beyond this open basin, the land tightens again. Valleys become enclosed, history gathers more densely, and belief, practiced quietly for centuries, begins to accumulate. From the seasonal stillness of Pobjika, the journey continues toward Bhutan's spiritual heartland, Bumthang. Bumthang sits quietly at the center of Bhutan, and that is exactly its character. It is not a single dramatic valley, or a place defined by one landmark. Instead, Bumthang is a group of gentle basins, connected by rivers, forests, and low mountain passes. The land here feels settled. Nothing rises abruptly, nothing pulls you forward in a hurry. The geography helps explain why this region became Bhutan's spiritual heart. Bumthang lies high enough to stay cool, but not so high that life becomes a constant struggle. Winters are long, but predictable. Summers are mild. The terrain allows people to stay year-round, farm steadily, and build without needing to retreat or relocate. Stability here was possible early on. That stability mattered. When Buddhism began to spread across Bhutan, Bumthang became a place where teachers stayed rather than passed through. Some of the country's oldest temples were established here, not as grand monuments, but as working spaces for learning, meditation, and daily ritual. Many sit close to villages and fields, placed where people already lived rather than set apart from them. What makes Bumthang different is how ordinary belief feels. Monasteries do not dominate the landscape, they blend into it. A temple might appear beside a grazing field or along a footpath used every day. Prayer is not staged. It happens between chores, before meals, and at the start of the morning. Faith here is not something people visit, it is something they maintain. Daily life follows the same rhythm. Villages remain small, houses cluster together. Farming continues on a modest scale, shaped by season rather than ambition. There is little sense of display, either in architecture or behavior. Even religious festivals feel grounded, tied more to community than spectacle. Bumthang is often described as ancient, but what stands out more is continuity. Practices did not pile up quickly, they accumulated slowly. Generation after generation repeated the same routines. Refined the same rituals and kept belief practical rather than symbolic. Over time, faith became familiar, not intense, but durable. After the wide openness of Pobjika, Bumthang feels inward and steady. This is not a place defined by space, but by time. Time spent staying, practicing, and returning to the same paths. It shows a side of Bhutan where belief did not need protection or performance. It simply lasted. And in that quiet endurance, Bumthang reveals one of Bhutan's most consistent lessons. Sometimes, the most influential places are not the ones that stand out, but the ones that remain. Across Bhutan, the story is never told through a single place. It emerges gradually through repetition. Valleys enclosed by mountains, rivers that dictate where power once settled, high plains that follow seasonal return, and communities that learned, over time, how to remain without forcing expansion. What becomes clear is that Bhutan's geography does not merely influence life here, it regulates it. Steep terrain limits speed, altitude shapes routine, distance requires patience. These physical constraints were never fully overcome, and, as a result, they became part of the social structure itself. Movement slowed. Decisions accumulated weight. Change arrived carefully. Belief followed the same logic. In Paro, devotion demands effort, not access. In Punaka, authority gathered where rivers allowed connection rather than dominance. In Thimphu, governance adapted to modern needs without abandoning restraint. Beyond the urban centres, places like Pobjika and Bumthang show how rhythm, repetition and continuity still define daily life more than ambition or growth. Bhutan is often described as isolated, but isolation is only part of the picture. What truly defines the country is selection, choosing which influences to absorb, which to delay, and which to refuse. Roads exist, but they wind. Systems function, but they do not accelerate endlessly. Modernity is present, but it does not erase what came before. This is not a society frozen in time. It is one that moves deliberately, shaped by an understanding that geography sets limits, and that living well within those limits requires agreement between people, belief, and land. In Bhutan, balance is not an abstract value. It is practical. It appears in how cities grow, how faith is practiced, how seasons are respected, and how movement is measured. The landscape does not ask to be conquered, it asks to be read. And in learning to read it, Bhutan offers something increasingly rare, a reminder that progress does not always mean faster, larger, or louder. Sometimes it means knowing when to slow down, when to hold, and when to let the land lead.